Good. Greetings, family. Greetings. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today. This is extremely important to all of us that we address certain issues that have come up in our community and will continue to come up. One thing that comes to mind as I start, I remember a quote by Wade Nobles, a member of the Association of Black Psychologists. He said, "Power is the ability to define reality. And once someone buys your definition of reality, you have power over them." That power dynamic plays out in significant ways in our community. We see on a daily basis where we have bought into someone else's definition of reality, which has given them power over us. If we want a new reality, we better form it ourselves. Take power back. In this political system, once we've accepted and given someone power over us, it determines who gets services, who doesn't get services, who gets recognized, who gets maligned. We need to set a new paradigm for ourselves. My name is Jabari Jamani, and I am the director of the Afiba Center here. It's been my pleasure, too, for the last, going on now, we're in our 20th year, providing services for our community. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure. It's a passion. When you step up to community efforts, it's not something you're going to get rich doing. You've got to feel for our people. You've got to have a vision for what you want the outcome to be like. And that's got to be what fuels you. You've got to be internally motivated, not externally motivated. Because if you're externally motivated, if you run off funds where you pass the hat, and you look and see a couple of dollars in it, you're going to quit. If you're internally motivated, you understand that the mission is bigger than you. Right. And you will keep moving forward. We selectively put programming together here at this center in two manners. What we look at is the needs of the community. We want to service the needs of the community. We want to heal and ill, whatever that is. And we also seek to marry our professionals as the vehicle through which this will be done. That's critically important. Let's say we do relationship workshops. We know we have some issues in our community. We could bring anybody in here to discuss those issues. Any ethnicity at all, to discuss the issues that are pertinent in our community. But that only heals part of the problem. You'll see a solution, but you'll always see somebody else as being the hero coming in to rescue black folk. It's critically important that we have brothers and sisters from the Association of Black Psychologists come in here and help us massage our way through these difficulties. Because we can't separate now looking at who helped orchestrate us and lead us through that passageway to a cure. We can't say that these people are inept. We have to fight our way constantly through the notion that we can provide adequate service for our community. It's a shame that in this day and age we have to continue to fight that battle, but it's a psychological battle. So throughout this short discussion, you're going to hear me refer to the psychological aspects. Just like when I talked about Wade Nobles and the power dynamic, we're going to come back to the psychological aspects. What we do here, and looking at a couple of different programs we have just to illustrate what we try to do. Last evening in this room here, we had the Liberation Cinema, where we have professionals like Professor Wilfred Yusuf Doucette, who come and provide service to our community in that as a professional, as a professor in a college environment, to play thought-provoking videos and films and prompt discussion after it wakes us up intellectually. We do that monthly here. We also relationship workshops I've mentioned, we marry those psychologists with our programming so that the healing that comes out of it, we're connected psychologically to the fact that we are part of that process. We look at the Black Health Collective. The Black Health Collective is, first and foremost, it stands alone as something that's valuable. When we talk about health and us learning how to heal ourselves, that's necessary and that's valuable. We could have anybody come in and provide these lectures, but we don't do that. We look at people like Tabiti Umoja. We look at people like Dr. Goss. We look at people like Dr. Nathan Rabb. All of these are Africans. So when you see the healing coming out of the African state of mind, you no longer think that you're a failure. You know that greatness is within you. It's within your reach to achieve these goals. We even had the pleasure of, many of you remember the Harambe Farmers Market that took place here for over a decade. We could have just brought any agriculturalist in. We didn't do that. We drove 200 miles up to Fresno to find the African-American farmers of California. And they drove down every single week, a 200-mile jaunt. They believed in us, we believed in them. This is the type of dynamic that needs to play out if we're ever going to have success in our community. You'll find that today we're going to be talking about what seems to be a missing link, a missing hookup, I should say, between some of our black politicians and their belief in investing in us as a community. Are we not worthy to be invested in? We think we are. So once again, what we have to do is redefine what power is. We have to define reality and have them by our definition of reality, which is us exercising power over the system. Recently, the 8th District has come up with a plan that some of you might have heard of called Destination Crenshaw. This is a plan which is put forth to somehow stave off gentrification, or in some ways counteract its effect. How many here have heard of Destination Crenshaw, honestly? Outside, let's put it like this. How many have heard of Destination Crenshaw outside of our promoting this event about that? Okay, that's, looks like it might be a fifth of, not even that, but 5% of our audience. In short, what Destination Crenshaw is, it's promoting, we have the Crenshaw line, which is coming in, up and down Crenshaw. Above ground, it will be 1.3 miles from 48th Street to 60th Street. Now, along the course of that, there's going to be an open-air museum they're promoting. Now, that's being promoted as some mechanism through which gentrification will be staved off, to let people know that there was a viable African-American community here. I think we can do better than that. To let somebody know, first of all, artwork is extremely important in our community. Artwork, music, all of this. However, if you want to stave off gentrification, deal with economic programs that help us put a firm foundation and roots in the ground, the soil, the businesses, the houses in this area. That way, no one can uproot us easily. Is it that this is not known by the politicians? No, they know that. There are programs available such as opportunity zones, which allow people of obviously of greater economic means to come into our community, put their economic roots down on the property, on the ground, on the acreage, and now we're at the beck and call of them when it comes to when you have to leave. The prices shoot through the roof. And you have to leave just that fast. The adverse impact of this Destination Crenshaw can be seen right here on the grounds of this particular establishment, the Afiba Center. We have been told and seen plans where they want to put a 120-foot tower in the parking lot. That's right, 12 stories high, a tower in the parking lot. Crenshaw Boulevard has been called Crenshaw Boulevard since at least 1940. So for people who find themselves on Crenshaw Boulevard and don't know that they're on Crenshaw Boulevard since 1940 on, what this tower will say is something very enlightening. Crenshaw. What's that all about? Now, how that staves off gentrification, I'm not quite sure. But what it does from a negative standpoint, an adverse impact on our operation is all you beautiful people who are able to come and enjoy programming here. We have only 24 spaces outside. They want to take that down to 10 spaces for aesthetics. Just the ability to say that we did some artwork out here, which as an inspector with the City of Los Angeles, I know there'll be problems with that. A freestanding monument here on Crenshaw Boulevard. We know our seismic condition here in California. We know now that with this rail system coming up Crenshaw above ground, the vibration, the constant vibrations and movements, £1 million worth of steel just sitting vertically. I can't understand what the validity is in making that happen, to even propose that. We're in the 8th District now, which has no marquee outlets, no more marquee sites in the 8th District. And for those of you, for me to be clear with that, when I say marquee spots, the 8th District used to be home to USC. USC is no longer in the 8th District, gone. The Coliseum, home of the first Super Bowl, gone, no longer in the 8th District. Leimert Park, gone. Marlton Square, gone. There is not one marquee spot left in the 8th District. A creative individual who has in mind the community and survival of this African-American community. Because let's go back to what Destination Crenshaw is about. Destination Crenshaw is about clearly and exclusively putting down a cultural marker for African-Americans here. It doesn't speak to anything else but that. So let's not be shy when it comes to protecting other institutions that exist here. This institution, for 20 years, has been doing programming for our people. We can look at Marcus Garvey School, for 40 years has been here. Marquee spot in our community. Have not reached out to them to find out what challenges they have, and they have challenges now. We have other institutions. Let's even look at something, if a person was creative enough, the Mamie Clayton Museum, which is now getting ready to be uprooted from the west side, you would say this is, if it's such a big deal to say this is an African-American community, a sacred space, find a home for that in your district. We can even look at what Sister Rosie Milligan has dealt with and the Black Authors on Tour. Find a home for that in this, what we're bragging on, this African-American space. Put some roots down so when people come through here, they know that there's some substantive things here that it will be difficult to uproot. I'm just figuring out how I'm gonna word this because we're all family, right? We're gonna keep this in the room, right? This is not going. Yeah, let's see how we word. Yeah, okay. I'm back on the psychological aspect of this. We got to talk about self-hatred. Self-hatred manifests itself in many different ways. And when I can look at black people and be a black person and not look to help black people, what is the issue here? This is not by accident. Some of this is by design. We've been here, this is our 20th year. In that 20 years, we've been through 4 council people, 4 elected officials who have presided over this particular area. 3 of them black, 1 of them white. if I were to tell you, now this is all family, right? We're staying right here in the room, right? So if I were to tell you that out of those 4 council people, only one of them helped us, you would have to say, well, the law is the average, 75% of them are black. Of course, it was supposed to be somebody black. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Are we taking for granted that black people can't say that you've overlooked me, you've marginalized me? Are black people playing off of that? 3 of them are black males. 1 of them was a white woman. The only one who's helped us was a white woman. It's like, what kind of psychological depravity is that? To pass us by every day and avoid, you have to consciously avoid coming to our assistance. So that's what we are here today talking about. Some of us might think, okay, we'll give the benefit of the doubt. It's not easy in any elected position. Okay, I'll give you that. But let me give you an example of an elected official who unapologetically did for black people. Let's look at Atlanta back in the 70s. Maynard Jackson. When they built the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, the man was bold enough to say, we're going to save 25% of all of these contracts that are coming into this newly built airport for black folk. Well, he said for minorities, but in Atlanta that meant black folk. And folk objected to it until he said, okay, scrap the whole project. They said, no, 25% sounds good. This is what you heard? Yeah, I like that idea. That's good. You know. But what that allowed to happen, what that opened the door for in Atlanta, was for black wealth to be created that still exists 40 years from now, or 40 years from the inception of that particular concept. It's critical that we think that way. When we talk about black wealth, we're not talking about vulgar materialism and capitalism. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the ability for one person to say, I have a Mercedes-Benz, or I have a Benz, I have a Bentley, or something like that. No, we're not saying that. What we're saying is it allows us to send our children to college. It allows us to, black people hire black people. It allows us to do that. So that's the kind of support we would love to see from any of our council people. Self-hatred, we have to examine that. But we have to reshape the paradigm and put that in people's face. And hopefully that's not what their goal is, but that's what's been demonstrated. If I tell you three out of the 4 council people who we've been under were black, and none of them have, and I'm not saying have come to us and done anything. I'm saying we've knocked on their door. Present council person, I got a list of 8 to 10 times I've called that office to set an appointment and been diverted to someone else. Oftentimes I'm diverted to somebody who's not black to take this appointment. So I'm putting it out there. We don't say, you're not doing anything to help us. No, we go knock on your door and say, I'd like to put a proposal on your desk that I'd like for you to take a look at. And I think it could bring some jobs and some positive energy to this community. And that's been ignored in many cases. So we're here to reshape the paradigm and set a new standard for how business is done here in the community. It's past time. Across the nation now we see people are not having it, and they shouldn't have it. They're not going to be stepped on, stepped around, stepped over. You see teachers on strike to get what they should get. You see people talking about fair wages, living wages. This is a discussion that needs to take place. But to not even be willing to have the discussion is inexcusable. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to our next speaker, Sister Sada Umoja, who's with the Hyde Park Organizational Partnership for Empowerment. Thank you. I'd like to say as well that after we conclude, we're going to have breakout sessions where you can, talk to people individually as follow-up on each one of their topics.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm glad to see those of you who came out in the rain despite, because we have to keep moving forward no matter what happens. Again, as he said, I'm with the Hyde Park Organizational Partnership for Empowerment, and this is the area that the Afiba Center is in. My primary concern, or our primary concern, the reason this organization was formed right after the 1992 revolts was because the community basically was being neglected. Services were not what we needed. We were not receiving the kind of responses we needed from our public officials, and the community basically needed some foundation in order to build on, in order to create a living, thriving, viable community. So after the 1992 revolts, people came together, block clubs came together and created the Hyde Park Organizational Partnership for Empowerment. And through this entity, we've been able to address a lot of issues that are of concern in regards to land use, in regards to the type of economy that we want to build in this community. We have been involved in working to make sure that the type of businesses along the corridor are the type of businesses that actually service the community, as opposed to chicken shacks, motels, and liquor stores, okay? A part of what has happened over the years is that it's been a constant struggle dealing with maintaining what is called the Crenshaw Quarter Specific Plan, because it's been under attack continuously. Crenshaw Boulevard is mainly a commercial corridor, okay? But it has now several charter schools on it. It has housing on it. This is basically like the undermining of the economic foundation for the community. So what we have now, I guess just like the hurricane that came to New Orleans, just like the train that's coming through along Crenshaw Boulevard that the community fought so vehemently to get underground, knowing and understanding what it would do to our community, which it is doing. Businesses have had to close down. This is one of the last areas in the city where you have economically black-owned businesses, in the area, and many of them have not been able to sustain. And now we have Destination Crenshaw. Wow. Okay, so Destination Crenshaw, as Jabari said, is supposed to be a outdoor gallery, an outdoor museum. The problem with this and a lot of the planning that is taking place in this area and in many areas throughout the city is that the community has been totally left out of the planning. I mean, we're an organization that's been around, literally involved in different community, land use, planning issues for this community. And so how do you come with a major project that's basically supposed to address the issue of the train being above ground and destroying the community, and proposing to now address those issues and have this outdoor gallery and not include the people in it who worked so hard, first of all, to get the train underground, who've been working over the last 25 years to plan and actually try to create some positive institutions in this community, some economic institutions in this community, in order to create economic viability and stability in this community. So what happened when they first started planning Destination Crenshaw, HOPE, or the Hyde Park Organizational Partnership for Empowerment, was invited to a couple of meetings. In those meetings, for which this area that is from 60th Street down to 48th Street, which is the 1.3 miles where Destination Crenshaw is supposed to be, literally, the only people in the room from this area were folks from Hyde Park. And that was literally one or two people. The rest of the entire room was filled up with people who we didn't know, never worked with, never identified with, maybe never even came on this side of town, maybe up in the hills somewhere, whatever. But when we voiced our concerns about some of the things that they were talking about, what we found is that we were disinvited to the meetings. And so some of the things that they were talking about was in terms of how the land is used. Some of the areas, for instance, MTA had to, I shouldn't say had to, but actually claimed eminent domain on some of the property in the area. You know, we've heard us talking about open spaces, identifying where the land is so we can see how we can designate the land so that we can create the kinds of things and institutions that we need in order to help the community thrive. So just on the other side of Crenshaw, just a little east, MTA had an area that they put all their construction stuff. When they were through with that, that land was vacant. They also have another area right over here on the other side of the bank, which is also now vacant, which they were using for their construction project. We've been asking for the longest, what's going to happen with that land? You know, let us know what's going on. We want to know what's going on with that land because we have some things that we'd like to see happen with that land. Those were commercial spaces, spaces where you can actually build a business and have a viable service there and maybe hire locally from the community and get some young people involved. So believe it or not, there are 11, maybe 12 now, open spaces from 60th Street up to 48th Street. And I understand now they're even going up to Vernon, that little triangular area right there just before you get to Lamert Park. They're looking at that too. We're trying to figure out how open spaces is going to support economic development. Because a part of what this project promises to do is to provide some type of economic viability for the community, bring economic vibrancy to the community. This is something that Hope has been working on for years. We could help you with that, you know? We could tell you what kind of things we've been working on. We actually had a community plan that was also undermined because of, you know, the undermining of granting land use for schools and, you know, for housing and stuff like that. You know, what type of services that would really be a benefit to this community. So now you have made this plan for which you have left us out of. We had an opportunity to talk to them about this a little bit, and we made it clearly known to them that we were left out of the process and that we needed to make sure we were in the process because we definitely wanted to see how this land could be used to support economic viability. We're opposed to them making plans for areas in our community without our input. Now, so we find out when we come over to Brother Jabari's, he happened to just invite us to the meeting when they were there, that they are planning to build this 120-foot tower here in the parking lot. And we're like, wait, excuse me, when did this happen? You know? And matter of fact, why haven't we been more involved, and why haven't you reached out, engaged us in terms of the planning for our own community? The promise was, yeah, we know we've been doing a lousy job at engaging the community, and we're going to do better. Well, guess what? The next time we heard about this whole plan for this outdoor gallery was when they invited the entire community out, you know, people from everywhere to come take a look at what they had done, you know, how far they have advanced. And we're sitting there saying, like, what has happened here? I mean, they literally had all these plans and stuff, and you seriously have not made sure that we who live in this area have been involved in what you've done? Who are you to make plans for this community? Who are you to say what goes where? What gives you the right to do that? You know what I mean? And so, no, we do not accept what you have done. And you are, well, we had the council person to come out to a meeting that we had about a week or so ago, and we made these things known. That first of all, we want to know what is being done to support the current businesses along Crenshaw Boulevard. Because very little is being done. Matter of fact, one of the brothers was actually involved with the MTA Business Solution Center, and it is such a lousy excuse for what they are proclaiming to help businesses. So few businesses have benefited from it until it's just ridiculous. A lot of what the businesses need in the area are they need more than just an offer to I think the $50,000 cap for most businesses, but they actually need help in doing some of the legal stuff that's necessary in order to sustain their business. Some of them are behind on their taxes. Some of them, are having other issues that are important in terms of being able to maintain a business. So help with that. If you're serious about making sure that they can sustain, make sure that they have that, and don't let that be an excuse for why you don't give them the money that they need in order to sustain. So where we're at right now is we're waiting to hear back from the council office. I mean, they promised us when they left out of there that they were going to make sure that this was one of the things that they dealt with. The other thing that we made a demand for is that we wanted to make sure that we were included on what they call the community partners who have been doing most of the planning for Destination Crenshaw. And I should say virtually none of them live in Hyde Park. They live in other areas. Probably most of them probably live in the hills. You have some other ones that we have had no relationship whatsoever before in terms of doing the work of Hyde Park. Usually, when you work with somebody, you have a building relationship with them, you know who they are. Particularly, we're concerned because so many of the people who worked to deal with Destination, not deal with Destination, but to make sure that the train was below ground, so many of those people, those activists, none of them were involved. That would have even been a plus, So he said, yes, we'll make sure that, we have your community involved, or the Hyde Park involved in that. And so we said, we want more than just one or two positions. Oh, yeah, no problem. Yes. Oh, so we're still waiting. The other thing that we said that we wanted was we wanted support for our community plan. Our community plan is one that basically needs to be adjusted a little bit now because basically it's dealing with all dealing with economic viability, social institutions, cultural, everything that you can imagine. We're not opposed to art. We're not opposed to culture. Culture and art is important, but it has absolutely no real root if it doesn't have some type of economic support. The point that we're at right now in our history is that we've done all the other stuff. We've did the social, cultural, whatever it is. But where we are right now, the thing that is most important is our economic survival and viability. We need wealth building in our community. We need economic empowerment. And this project that they have out here absolutely is not what we need. What we need is to redesignate how they have designated the land to be used for open spaces. Open parkways. One of our members asked them, tell me how these open spaces are going to support economic vibrancy. Oh, we'll have some pop-up businesses out there. Excuse me? A pop-up there? Tell me, so what do they do? Come one day and leave one day and come back? How does that really add to an institution in our community? The other thing that we need is that I should not say that we need, but that we know right now is that we cannot depend on the council office for what it is that we want. We need to make a demand of them, but we absolutely need to look at who are the people in our communities that have the skills and the talents. We need help in terms of getting people who have the money, the people who own the homes. We have a lot of older people now who are ready to sell their homes. We need to find out who they are. We need to make the connection with them. We need to connect them with a younger family or some people that are ready to buy that home. That's what we need right now. The council office could help with that, but we're not going to depend on that, The other thing that we need is we need our young people to be trained in viable skills. Skills that will get them more than just a living wage, but will get them a wage that will support their families, you see. So we need institutions in our community that are going to provide that for our young people. And we need to know where the resources are. That's something that the council office could help with, but we're not going to depend on them for that. But to know where to go, where to get what it is that we need in order to build the type of institutions that we want. So that's what we're looking for from the council office. But as I say, as of yet, we have not heard from them. We are going to continue to hold them accountable. And again, I want to say that about opportunity zones, Jabari mentioned. You know, this is something that probably was proposed over a year ago that we just really kind of found out about. Opportunity zone is an area where supposedly in mostly what they call lower income areas that multi-million dollar investors can, you know, have a pool of money. People can, you know, get into what's called, well, Sister Carmen's going to talk about that a little bit more, opportunity fund, and supposedly be able to take advantage of some of that money in order to be able to build your business or to create a business. And when we asked the council person about it, what he said to us was that he, everything hadn't quite rolled out yet, so he wasn't quite sure, you know, basically, you know, what was going on with it, but that, you know, when they found out, you know, that, yeah, they would help with some seminars and making sure people knew about how it worked. And guess what we found out? He lied. Oh, let me tell you why we know he lied. Nipsey Hussle, right over here on Slauson, you know that, what, Crenshaw Marathon store right over there? Is getting ready to take advantage of the Opportunity Fund. Guess what we found out about it at? Forbes magazine. So we don't read, so we wouldn't know that, right? And so basically, it's not that we're opposed to so much what he's doing. You understand what I'm saying? But how can the community take advantage of that? Any new housing that comes into this area right now, any development that comes into this area has to go through the council's office. That's where you start at. Anything that you want to do, you got to start with the council office first. You didn't know about that? All right, so now what we want for any development that comes to this area, any planning that comes to this area, is to be involved and included in the decision-making about how this land is used. While we live here, we work here, we're a community, you know, we have a right to know, and we declare that right. So what's happening at this point, as I say, as we wait, is that we are looking forward to working with those in our community who are ready to make a challenge for some real leadership. Real leadership in our community where our demands are heard, you know, where they will actually work with us to develop the type of communities that we want, that we need, that thrive, communities that strive. And so this is what the Hyde Park Organizational Partnership is looking for. We are definitely in support of the Afiba Center. The Afiba Center has been here just about almost as long as we've been here. And again, it has provided some really viable programs here, particularly the marketplace was a beautiful thing, and we want to be able to maintain that. So again, as I step down and allow my sister friend here, you know, to begin to also address this issue of what some of our concerns and our issues are, I just want to let everybody know that we're going to be continuing in this struggle, and if you have a skill or a talent or something that you'd like to offer or some information, you know, that we are ready to receive that. You know, we're ready to work with whomever, but we do have a plan that we'd like to put in place for our community, and we want those designations changed for all that open space so that we have the viable businesses that we need. And the type, in addition to that, any type of housing has to have a mixed use, which means that there has to be businesses on the bottom, and not just a little bit of space, but space that's adequate enough to actually provide some type of economically viable business that can be there. Okay? Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Ms. Robin Davis, representative from Park Mesa Neighborhood Council.
Hi, y'all. Okay, where to start, where to end. Number one, I am a board member of the Park Mesa Heights Community Council. If you live in Hyde Park, Angeles Mesa, or View Heights, you have a zip code of 90043, I really hope that you'll start showing up, because the whole reasoning for the neighborhood councils are that we are to communicate to the representative of the district what the community is concerned about, what it wants to happen, and what it does not agree should be happening. As a board member, I have the power to voice my concerns, but they are not deemed critical unless there are people sitting in the audience who say yes, who say that's what needs to be happening, and that's what we will not allow to happen. However, I'm really here today not representing the neighborhood council because it did not go to a vote as to whether or not there could be representation here today. So I'm here today as one of the people who was involved in an organization called Crenshaw Subway Coalition. It was the organization that did the very most in educating and informing the community about what was getting ready to happen on Crenshaw Boulevard. If I were you and I didn't know anything about the light rail, I would wonder why for 11 blocks that train would be traveling at grade level. This is the heart of the black community. Crenshaw Boulevard is what 125th Street represents to New York City. That's where I'm from. I can give you the answer to that question because in 2011 in September, I was in the MTA board meeting and I asked the question, why would you choose to put a train at grade level in the middle of Crenshaw Boulevard? And they said, for two reasons. Your street is wide enough and it's economically feasible. The word feasible means that we choose to do so. Not that we don't have the money to have it underground, but obviously there may be another place where we choose to use that money. And so from 2011 until 2016, we did everything that we could do to talk to the people who were supposed to represent us. We crossed every T, dotted every I, instituted a lawsuit, had big rallies, big board meetings, and I just want to say to you, to those of you who are here today, you came in spite of the rain. As a New Yorker, I thank you because I know Californians have a penchant for not being able to travel through the rain. So this is obviously going to have to be a series of rallies because we were supposed to be outdoors to speak with people who don't even know that this is happening. So those two questions were asked as to why the train is traveling at grade level. And Destination Crenshaw is their way of healing our wounds. That a 225-ton train is going to travel at grade level every 3 to 5 minutes at 35 miles per hour. This is their way of consoling the Hyde Park community. They didn't ask, well, gee, what can we do we know we made a bad mistake. What can we do to make it better? Nobody asked that question. They just came and said, guess what we gonna do? We doing Destination Crenshaw. Okay, what would that consist of? Let's see, we're going to have an open air museum for as the, trains are traveling 35 miles an hour. It'll be scenic, And then those who are trying to get to the airport, they can get off at Crenshaw and Slauson and visit a pocket park. That'll be the highlight of the trip right there. So in any event, the problem is, and I apologize, because when Crenshaw Subway Coalition was happening, I deemed myself the angriest member of Crenshaw Subway. Now I deem myself the angriest board member of Park Mesa Heights Community Council. But all of that has to do with non-directed anger. This anger has to, for myself, be directed at propelling people to get into the streets, because the only way to get in the face of the people who represent us is to put them on notice that no longer are we just willing to vote for you because you look like us when you don't do nothing for us. Nothing for us. In 2016, when the seat for Council District 8 was up, there were 4 people running for that seat. I can't think of the 4th, but it was Foresi Hogan Rolls, Bobby Anderson, and a man named Marquise Harris Dawson. Robert Cole. We told these 4 people that the most important issue for us was that a train deemed to travel at grade level would be put underground. Foresi Hogan Rolls said, if you vote for me, that train's going underground. Everybody else said, oh yeah, I'll do that too. Okay, that included Marquise Harris Dawson. We met with Marquise Harris Dawson, and seemingly he understood, but then later on he informed us that his assignment was homelessness. And as far as I know, I never saw anything in writing. I never heard a voice. I never heard an attempt to put it on the city council agenda. So essentially, now we are being directed towards the acceptance of Destination Crenshaw. However, as I said, the only reason for Destination Crenshaw is it supposedly puts in place the semblance of an African American community. However, when we attended the last event, which was for the leaders of the community, and once again, we were the only Hyde Park representatives, I asked the question, what about the maintenance of this open air museum? They said, oh, well, the materials are going to be, weatherproof, blah, blah, blah. I said, yes, but what about the continuance? Is there an endowment? Everyone looked around. Oh, gee, what a novel idea. An endowment to, continue it into perpetuity. So my thinking is that the open air museum will last as long as we're here. And thereafter, whatever is deemed necessary for that property will happen. Basically, right now, this is the time to say this far and no further. Because supposedly, everyone who's in a decision-making position has nothing to do with us. And what I say, because even before I came to Los Angeles, I heard that there was a black community. Just as in New York City, it's Harlem, I heard that there was a black community. I wound up in the Valley, and I said, where are the black people? They said, you have to go to the Crenshaw. I came to the Crenshaw, and I bought a house in the Crenshaw, because I want it to be with black people. So right now, the plan is to usher us out. Destination Crenshaw is a distraction. It's a distraction because right now, every type of developer who wants to do anything on Crenshaw Boulevard has a green light. It's all about putting in residential housing, not 2 and 3 bedrooms for families. These are single units and studios in which they allocate a certain amount of space for bikes, because seemingly these people are going to be only too happy to jump onto the light rail or the bus. But that actually looks to me like Las Vegas Row, where you fly in and you fly out, and you have housing available to you that directly connects you to transportation. But that's not what this community is about. This community is about single-family homes. It has been said that we are the largest community of single-family homes. And so right now, if we have a council person who thinks, that's okay, then there's something wrong with that. Because we cannot continue to greenlight people who just come in so that they can suck money out of the community, put nothing back into it, and then, as has already been stated, the opportunity zone, which is once again Slauson over to 48th, and is it Victoria over? But the problem is that people who do not live here have been knowing of this for the last year. Their money's already in place. They're getting ready to come in and start making offers that nobody can refuse. And the people who were supposed to tell us about it say they know nothing about it. So, don't believe what your lying eyes see in print, okay? Those are just your lying eyes. But I'm seriously, seriously concerned about the fact that if there is not a sincere effort on the part of people like yourself, who maybe have never shown up at a neighborhood council meeting because they look at it. They will come, if they have been asked to come to a meeting, they will come and look at the number of cars in the lot and deem whether it's necessary or not to spend time with you. That's how critical it is. So no matter what we're saying, unless the numbers show up, and I'm looking out here right now, and it looks like baby boomers are in the majority. And if any baby boomers have time to show up at some of the city council meetings, because we do have an election coming. And that's what we have right now. We have the power of coercion. We have the power of coercion to either do something right now, or guess what? You won't be coming back to do nothing anyhow. We could do that. And in fact, there's a young lady here who's probably going to present herself as an alternative. And I hope you will listen closely. But once again, we have a train traveling at grade level for 11 blocks when the other areas of the city have trains traveling underground. And remember, this train was also underground. It gets to pop up out of the ground for 11 blocks because they didn't think it was necessary to save the lives of our community residents. And that's going to happen. And they've already projected that maybe it's okay to spend more money saying, to spend a little money saying, oh, I'm so sorry about the fact that one of your family members died. That's what they think of this community. Because once again, remember, we're not supposed to be here too much longer anyway. So you get to do what you want to do. But what I am proposing to you, what you're sitting in right now, this edifice called the Afiba Center, if you don't do something, see, I don't concern myself with that tower as Asada and Jabari do. I concern myself with this building. Because when we went to Destination Crenshaw, which included only the leaders of the community, the Afiba Center was highly profiled, except it was not named. And I asked the question, I said, well, why isn't that called the Afiba Center? Oh, yeah, we know. I said, well, I know, and you know. What's the problem? Well, we know what the problem is. In fact, one of the members of the community partners who came here to a meeting and didn't expect to find Hope, nor a member of the Park Mesa Heights Community Council at that meeting, said he loved this building. He was highly impressed with it, thought it had promise. So, yeah, he'd like to have it for his office. There's other stuff happening around us. The EDD building, remember you used to get to come to the EDD? Closed with 3 days' notice. Nobody knows why. I'm going to save that for the next meeting. But the point being, seriously, if you can just get angry enough to think that something should be done for you because everybody else is celebrating a train coming through their community because they're having sidewalk cafes. We're not getting to have a sidewalk cafe. I think instead of a pocket park, I might want a dining facility where I could literally, when somebody came into town, I could take them to a place in my own community. We could sit down, we could have dinner, we could socialize within our own realm. So I'm proposing, I'm wearing this shirt about reparations because I belong to an organization called Reparations United Front. And we designate the first Saturday that is closest to March 6th as Reparations Demand Day because that is the day of the Dred Scott decision, when this nation deemed itself capable of terming black people only, worth 3/5 of a human being. I don't know what the other 2/5 were supposed to be about. But the additional entry that I would make to you is, if anybody needs to be living in Los Angeles, it would be us. Because of the 44 Pobladores, the majority of them were black. They settled Los Angeles. Why should we be ushered out? And see, the Latinos, poor babies, they don't know the history. And if we don't literally get in the face of people and start telling the history, if nobody else tells it, it won't be known. So I'm urging you today to do two things. Number one, if you live in the zip code 90043, please see me before you leave today, because I really need you. Just like you showed up here, I'm going to get you to show up elsewhere. But additionally, just be mindful of the fact that if you don't live in the Park Mesa Heights, this area belongs to black people. This is where black people came to do whatever it is they wanted to do. This is where they brought friends and relatives. No matter how far you lived, you came to the Crenshaw. My son graduated from Crenshaw High. He said it was the Shaw. And he said the thing he liked about it was that every economic level was involved in his life. He knew kids who lived in Baldwin Hills. He knew them who lived in Baldwin Village. And we all agreed that we were happy to be here. And if we want to continue to be here, we're going to have to let Marquise Harris Dawson know that he's supposed to help, that he's supposed to make it happen for us, or we don't make it happen for him. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate when I will be seeing you again very soon, because it's really necessary. Thank you.
We're going to save all of our questions till we have two more speakers. We'll ask a few questions, and we'll split up into our breakout sessions where you can get in depth with whatever questions you have. Our next speaker is Sister Carmen Hill. She'll be going a little bit further into depth about what opportunity zones are. You've heard that mentioned just in a gloss over with last three speakers, but she'll be able to put a little more context on it and tell us how and why we should have been let in on that and how that can manifest greatness for our community. Carmen Hill. You might want to, as well, walk behind the camera when you leave and come in front.
Good afternoon. I'm not a political activist as to the previous speakers. I was kind of dragged into this by Javari. But anyway, so my background is a little bit different. At age 20 at Howard University, there was a big movement at the time to get black people into Ivy League schools. So I was offered the opportunity to go to an Ivy League school free of charge. I barely knew what an Ivy League school was. Free of charge, tuition, food, everything. I was 20 years old. What the heck? And so then after that, everybody goes from an Ivy League school and works on Wall Street. So that's what I did. Then you work in Century City. And then I worked for a real estate developer. But after I worked in all these fields, I said, you know what? I'm just making rich people richer. And you still don't get respect. They still hate your guts. And it was very unsatisfying to me. So while I have Ivy League alumni that have their fancy homes with the golf courses, I'm here on Crenshaw trying to get property owners to be aware of what an opportunity zone is and how detrimental that can be on the community if they don't wake up. And like he said, come to find out, these have been planned for years. There's no way the council people could not have known about it, because what it is that in opportunity zones, investors can invest in property and not pay any capital gains tax. And this has been in planning for years because the politicians had to submit to the IRS what areas they wanted to be developed that they felt needed some influx of capital to change. So when they say they don't know nothing about it, that's impossible. They had to get input from the politicians to find out what areas that you want designated as opportunity zones. Now, the Baldwin Hills Mall is an economically depressed opportunity zone. Now, how do you define that? That's an area we want developed. All the properties around USC are in economically depressed areas. So politically, they had to know about it. I went to a presentation of Herb Wesson at the Southwest Board of Realtors, and all he was talking about was the cannabis business and how great that was for our community. He spoke about an hour about that. Now, I personally don't see how that's a great thing for our community. I see damaged young people even more. And I said, well, Herb Wesson, what about the opportunity zones? I think that's a great opportunity right there. Oh, yeah. Ask my deputy. Call my deputy about that. Okay, well, So how I found out about the opportunity zone, I consider myself pretty knowledgeable. I read everything. I found out about it at an ethnic real estate association meeting of all the ethnic real estate associations. And the Asian American real estate associations, we had to tell what all our organizations were doing. And it says, well, we're developing some properties in El Monte under the opportunity zone law. And I said, what is the opportunity zone? Oh, Google it. So I came right home and Googled it. Greatest tax break in the history of our country. And you haven't heard about it, I bet you. People on Wall Street can invest gains in the stock market if they invest in the opportunity zone, and it's not a permanent part of our tax code. After they, I guess, develop the economic depressed zones and they're not depressed anymore, we can just move on. It's only for a 10-year provision of the tax code. So isn't that kind of scary? We're going to develop all these areas, they're going to be wealthy, and then we're going to move on. And we don't have to pay any capital gains taxes on the things that we've invested in for those 10 years. So I have taken it upon myself to, with Jabbar dragging me, okay, that we have to get this information out to our community. The area, we're talking about almost $6 billion that'll be coming into our communities from outside the community. I'm the only one that's been given even workshops on this. Guess where they're giving the workshops? Santa Monica, Beverly Hills. They don't live in our community.
Where are you giving your workshops?
I'm giving the workshops here at the Afiba Center. And warning people, you're going to get people knocking at your door. I've already had people where I've given the workshops. They're already here. This law was passed in 2017. 2017, and they had to plan. I went to, someone said that there's a big opportunity zone workshop down at the LA Live. The people who gave in the workshop, well, on the panelists, they had been planning this stuff for years. The law was passed in 2017, but it was about years of planning on how they wanted to accomplish this. We had no lie. This is our community. Nobody knows nothing. Nobody's saying nothing. People behind the scenes, people have already invested. They've actually had people, monies have gone out. They have to get the maximum tax benefit. They have to have the money invested by December 2019. This is March. This money is burning a hole in their pocket. We have got this money, get this money out, and these are the areas that we can invest in and not pay. Never in the history of the country has this happened, that you can invest money. And I watched a webinar. They give them webinars, but not here, of course. And it says, I wanted to know, how could this be? Well, how it can be is because the Trump cohorts had all this money they had made in the stock market when the stock market was booming, and they were sitting on all this money that they had gained. How can we figure out a way not to pay taxes on it? Well, you know what? Let's say we're going to improve economically depressed areas, and then we'll get all the politicians to support it. But this is the first time in the history of the country that you can take money that you made in the stock market, invest it in an opportunity zone, and not have to pay capital gains taxes. And you can invest short term. You can be doing flips for 10 years, and your short term capital gains are not taxed. Isn't that the greatest thing you ever heard of? You can turn over 20 properties, make all millions, and not pay any capital gains tax. So the One Woman Crusade is to get to property owners. When they wave these dollars in front of you, don't take it. They can pay more than market because I don't have to pay capital gains on this money. What we're trying to do is get the word out. This is the money that we need for businesses. First time in the history of the country that they had money that if you can invest in a business, you can avoid capital gains taxes. So so what it is, they've designated areas that are economically depressed. I'll have a computer after the meeting so you can type in the address and see if it's an opportunity zone. But I can tell you everything from 48th to Slauson, east to west of the Crenshaw is an opportunity zone. Almost all of Hyde Park is an opportunity zone. So what this means for you as an owner is to get out the word. Don't sell your property. The reason why they want to invest in your area is because they know that the property is going to appreciate. You need to be a part of that appreciation. Don't take that money and go move to Las Vegas or go to Palmdale or take, because the reason this money is burning a hole in their pocket because they know that they're going to make money. So they're going to buy your property and make money over the next 10 years. And then they're going to sell it and pay no capital gains tax. So the word is to get to our community. Here's the money for your business. Demand that you, and they have to get the property. We don't want to pay all this capital gains tax. We're talking about, let's say I made $40 million in the stock market. I got to pay $8 million in capital gains taxes. If I just invest in this opportunity, I don't have to pay that $8 million in capital gains taxes, ever. So it's going to be burning a hole in the market. So the One Woman Crusade at the Afiba Center, we're going to give a lot of workshops. is don't sell your property when they come knocking at your door. At least if you don't have use their money to develop the property, but you still have a controlling interest as to what is being built. Why would they do that? Because they want your property. If that's the only way they can get it, they'll negotiate. They would negotiate partnerships. I've had people already call me already. Any size. So what we're teaching people is, let's see if your property can be developed. If there's room to add on more units, or like I said, to keep the commercial space, or if there's a viable business. The money also can be used for business. So hopefully that's the word we're getting out today. If you haven't had an opportunity zone, heard of it, you should Google it. People have already started investing the money. They've already had workshops in Beverly Hills and West Adams and Santa Monica. This is the only place that has I've given the workshop also at the Southwest Board of Realtors, but we had some spies from Beverly Hills come in, writing down notes. Ooh, God, they write down some notes. But we don't want that. We want our owners here that own properties to be part of it, to be part of the profits. If you don't have the money to develop, when they come or hire me and say, let's negotiate, give me half of the deal. But I need to be in it because I know you're going to make money off of the next 10 years. We want to control. And how you fight gentrification is not by having murals and public parks to identify that it's African American. They'll see there's African American businesses, and they'll see African American people living in the area. You don't need a mural to identify it as African American. You need to have these businesses here, owning the building. It bothers me. Every apartment project on Crenshaw is not black owned. I have a hard enough time getting black tenants in there. That troubles me to no end that every building on Crenshaw under construction is not black owned, no way, shape, or form. They don't even have a black property management company. We gotta stop that. Yes, you gotta sell your loan. Maybe you don't have the $10 million, but don't give up your ownership and the control partner. And so I will be around to have you, we can type an address to see if your property is in a property zone, opportunity zone. But that is how they're gonna wipe us out. If everybody sells out because that's a lot of money, it'll be gone. It's Black Wall Street without the fire.
Excuse me, Sister Carmen just reminded me of something that I needed to say. The main thing that we're talking about is community ownership. And we're talking about community ownership in a way that the community can actually be a partner in it. So we're looking at cooperatives, and we're looking at collectives. We're looking at how we can pool our monies together. I mean, so you may not have all of it, but, we put our money together and make it happen. We're working on it at Investment Club, have been working on it for some time, and that's really what we're looking at. One last thing I forgot to say that I want to say. A museum holds relics. And what relics are things from the past. And that's not what we're looking forward to. Okay, thank you.
Our last speaker, panelist, is Brother Tabiti Umoja. Tabiti wears two different hats. He's part of the Black Health Collective, which once a month here, holistic health practitioners come together, different modalities of their specialty. And he also is a community activist, and he's going to bring a little bit of that community activism into us right now. Thank you. Welcome, Brother Tabiti.
Greetings. Do I have permission from my elders to speak? Yes. Okay, anybody over 54? Okay, all right. I want to talk today on the attack on black consciousness. And when I was talking to Brother Jabari, and he talked to me about what was coming down with the Afiba Center, and I got a chance to see some of the planning of what was happening, the only thing I can think of is attack on black consciousness, attack on black culture, attack on black people. And this is something that is ongoing. And we're going to be here for a brief period of time, but when you look at the history of what's happened to us as a people, this is something that's been going on for a very long time when it comes to attacking black culture and consciousness. It goes back to the ancient mystery schools, from the plundering of the libraries, the ancient libraries. It goes to the knocking off of the black lips and the black nose of the Amacus, or we call the Sphinx. And then it goes through Black Wall Street, okay? We talk about Seneca Village, which is now Central Park. Okay, it goes on to Bruce's Beach in Manhattan, at Manhattan Beach, that used to be owned by black folks when they were putting the tires out in order for the business to fail. It goes further than just what's happening here at Afiba Center. We look at what's happening at Leimert Park. Okay, the word is, wherever there's black people that are gathering, networking, educating, or just enjoying each other's company, those places are being locked up and we're being locked out. And this is what's happening all over the nation and all over the world. And this is a serious attack on us as a people. As far as Leimert Park, I was talking to a few people about how we used to enjoy going there, not only to enjoy the art walk, or to enjoy the different events there, whether it was Malcolm X Day, or whether it was Garvey, or whether it was a Kwanzaa celebration, or whether it was Dr. King celebration, whatever. We came together as a people. So wherever there's black people gathering, there is a deliberate, and this is not by chance, or we just happen to move you guys away. This is deliberate to move us up out. And we see that happening all over. I've seen it even growing up, even going to San Diego and something this area called Ski Beach, where black people used to come and there was basketball courts, they used to hang out. They came there and police started arresting people and giving people problems, and the next week they put a sign that said, "Go home." I wonder who that was for. So these are the things, it's an ongoing situation where black consciousness and when black culture is being pushed out. We saw what happened with the old Magic Johnson Starbucks, where brothers used to hang out, or basically they were networking, some just playing chess or enjoying each other's vibration. Lock it up, lock them out. And so this is the common thing that we see going all around. I got invited to speak to the BSU from my old university where I went, and I was so happy to get the invite, and this was over a decade ago because I haven't been back. I've been back, but not in those terms. But they asked me to come back, and I remember how it was in college when we had a room of over 200 black folks, okay, and the Black Student Union was strong. And I remember one particular incident when they tried to kick our historian off of campus, and every black person showed up and scared them so much that they just said, "Well, look, we'll put her up, please, can y'all leave?" That type of energy, mass movements is what's being attacked, is attack on black consciousness. When I went back over a decade ago to go back to the university, they took me to a multicultural room. There was 200 people we used to meet every week, and I go to a multicultural room, and there was Latinos there was Asians, there was everybody, but there was nothing for black folks. What's there for us? And we see the black studies programs being eliminated throughout the country. These are things that happened in 1968 developed, and then by 1969, 1970, you saw them all over the United States, and now you see that situation changing. And so there's an attack on black consciousness. And so that's why we have to be aware. Now, what they're talking about doing here at the Afiba Center, it insulted me. I've been throwing programs here with Dr. Rabb for several years, and then before that I had a Thursday night, health night, that I used to do here. And this is a black space. It's a place where if they take this away, where do we go for black consciousness? I remember we had the Good Life restaurant down the street. A lot of those people were here. So now they're going to bump us from here and put us somewhere else. And I do have a problem with this obstruction they're talking about putting in the parking lot and taking up not only the parking spaces, but we have events outside where we have the stage set up where people can see us from all corners. Now you're going to obstruct that with a big tower that says Crenshaw. Doesn't make sense. Or a park and take up all the parking. So now when you have events where we have full houses here, now they got to park all around the corner just trying to come here. That is done deliberately. That is not, oh, we want decoration. They know what they're doing. They're stopping black consciousness. We got to call it what it is. That's what's happening here. When you talk about what's happening in Leimert Park, I remember when Geronimo got out, and we had a nice celebration there for him. When he came out, it seemed like there was 1,000 people on each corner. We could see him from each corner. But now, close it up, lock it up so black people can't gather. You can't gather. And this is what it's about. And we have to know what it's about. They know what's going on here at the Culture Center. They know the consciousness that's here. They know this is the last bit of consciousness. And if I insulted anybody, I'm sorry, but you need to step up your game when it comes to consciousness. Okay? We need to stop worshiping Negroes and honor our heroes. Brother Jabari, thank you for having this place here for us, that we can come here. I appreciate all of the other people here, the different programs that are thrown here. And I think it's a serious insult for you to be having planning meetings about what should go on here. We should do this, or we should do that, and you haven't talked to nobody here running programs. That is colonialism. That's that colonialism mentality. We don't care what they're doing. We're going to put our agenda down there. We're going to establish our fort, our settlement. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with attack on black consciousness. Let's call it what it is. I'll be here to support whatever's going on here. I know there's some conflict of interest. I'm here as a community activist. I'm here, and I'll take responsibility for all of what I say. Wherever I work, that's a whole different story, okay? But as far as this situation, this ain't going to be the last time we're going to meet. Like I said, we're going to have us outside, and they need to meet the demands of what we want. We know what we want. Well, for one, we do not want you to put that tower in the parking lot. We don't want all of these pocket parks that you're talking about putting in the community. You're not thinking about how you're going to secure those parks. What are you going to do when you have people start living in those parks? What are you going to do with that situation? Yeah, and I'm not against the homeless, because many of us in this room are a paycheck away from being homeless, right? Okay, but we know what happened in Leimert Park. You allowed that tent city to go on, so you have a reason to lock it up, put them out. Okay, so we have to look at the bigger picture of what's going on. And like I said, I'll be here. Support all the people that's behind me. There's some very strong people on this panel. We got a very strong community, and the consciousness will be here. And we have to realize that the consciousness is still in our community. You know, I'm looking at some of the youth that got that in them, but we have to bring that out, because a lot of our elders are sounding like Samuel Jackson on Django, right? Seriously. So we need to bring that consciousness out of our people, okay? And that has to happen. Asante Sana. Thank you.